Hi, this is the Startup Show. I'm John Wren. We're each Friday from noon to 12:30. So for the next half hour, we're going to be talking about startup. If you're going in a new direction with your work, or if you know someone who is, you might want to watch and get some ideas about how to get going now. We're going to be sponsored by the Small Business Chamber of Commerce. We have virtual groups online, and we have face-to-face groups. We cooperate with local chambers, service clubs, and other groups to try to give more real help to people who are starting in a new direction with their work. Watch here each week, but consider a live face-to-face Idea Cafe Startup Workshop. Come to the group we do here in Denver. It's the Denver Lodo Demonstration Group. It's at Panera Bread on 16th Street Mall. Market Street, right across the caddy corner from the Market Street station, which is since they're empty. I'd like to get RTD to come to one of our brainstorming sessions. But the Idea Cafe Startup Workshop is each Friday, so that's this afternoon at Panera Bread Cafe, 16th and Market. And from 4:30 to 6, we share startup experience, do a brainstorming type technique, and help each other know what's going on that might be helpful. It's not meant to be a regular stop on your calendar. If we say we're successful, if you are too busy to come back the next week. But stop in this afternoon or next Friday, and especially if you're out of town watching this now, think about your next trip to Denver, making the Idea Cafe Startup Workshop part of your trip, and then we'll give you help as you go back to find a right sponsoring group and the first few people to participate with you as you get it off the ground. But see one first. It's free and open to everyone. If you're watching this, you're welcome. So we're doing something brand new called the Donut Club, and we're testing this out at the University Station, the RTD University Light Rail Station, right across from the University of Denver. That's each Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. And we're only there for about 15 minutes. Nick at Duffy's Cafe is giving us a couple of dozen Duffy rolls. And it's not just a donut, it's a Duffy roll right now. So come and get a Duffy roll with us next Wednesday morning. It's very casual. There's not a formal presentation. We just say, hi, how are you? If you want to come and just grab a Duffy roll and be on your way, that's fine. So if you're at the University of Denver, walk across Bucktail Boulevard, you'll see us there. If you're on RTD commuting, you might time your stop to hop off, grab a Duffy roll, and then back on the next train. But we're there each Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. And we have other low-cost, no-cost groups too. And what we're doing is a startup method that focuses on 7 different practices that you can learn by participating in these free groups, among other ways. I mean, we're not against you going to school. We don't feel like we're in conflict with formal education. As a matter of fact, we feel like we enhance it. The more you know, the more we think you'll appreciate what we're doing. But even if you've not finished grade school, we think you'll get some value out of it by just coming, meeting people, and taking that next right step. So I'll tell you my biases about the SBA at the end of the show today. But first, I want to talk about this Small Business Chamber of Commerce method comprised of 7 practices. I'm going to use the show today to kind of give that overview one more time because I've made a big change in it. We had 4 practices and 3 sort of byproducts or end results from those practices. The more I looked at it, the more I thought, these are independent practices. And I think I'm almost to the point where I can write my new book. Now, my current book, it's been being sold for nearly 20 years. People have told me it's been helpful. It's only 99 cents on Amazon Kindle. If you buy it and don't find it helpful, come to the Donut Club or give me a call. We'll meet together and I'll give you $1 back. But I think you'll find it helpful. On Amazon, you can just search on John Wren, Johnwren, Daring Mighty Things, and my little booklet comes up. It's been endorsed by who I think knows more about startup than anyone in the world, Amar Bahide, B-H-I-D-E. And I knew him when he was teaching entrepreneurship at Harvard. He's been at other places since then. and is written a great book for people who teach entrepreneurship, but I don't know of one single class that's using it as a textbook, which is just a shame. You know, the startup approach for most universities is a little bit like their approach to poetry. You know, you may study about poetry, you may study about entrepreneurship, but does it really help you be a better poet? If you took a basketball class, are you going to all of a sudden be, you know, make the team? Probably not. So there is a role for academia to play. This observation of what's happening can be a very useful thing, but it can also, you know, lead to stereotypical thinking and sometimes just plain wrong-headedness. And that's what's happened with startup in this country. It's just plain wrong-headed to think that businesses start with the tools that I was taught to use in graduate business school. Formal market research, formal strategic planning are the kiss of death to a startup almost always. Very few successful businesses start that way. Now, there's all this talk of unicorns. Great work if you can get it, but you know, University of Denver now says that's what they're going to specialize, is teaching people to start unicorns. Well, let's see how well that works, because most businesses, when they start, now, and this may be changing, but I haven't seen it change. And there are some rare exceptions. They get a lot of publicity, but you know, most startups, person gets an idea, they want to try it, they do it, one thing leads to another. And the book that I recommend now, next to my little Daring Mighty Things, is Harvard Business Review Press, Just Start. And Lynn Schlesinger and Charlie Kiefer did a great job putting the book together. They did a terrible job promoting it. And it's a contrarian message. I wish they had, and that may still happen, you know, maybe a revised, fully revised second edition. I think they may have written a new book. I've tried to find it on Amazon a couple of times, and I come up short. It may show you my great computer skills if I can't find a book that's out there. But, you know, the essence of their book is really very much in keeping with the essence of the book that I wrote some 20 years ago, this Daring Mighty Things, that Amar Bahidi is endorsed. And, you know, the essence of it is, how do you get started? You just start. John Brackney, one of our meetings one time, he was the speaker, John Brackney, who did a great job when he was at the South Metro Chamber. Their URL is bestchamber.org. I think it's .org or .com, but Best Chamber, you know, in a way they really are here in the Denver area. I think they're aligning their thinking with the businesses, and that doesn't always happen, especially something like the Denver Chamber of Commerce. Right now they're pushing to kill the grassroots in Colorado is how I see it, but more about that later in the show before we go off. And don't let me forget, because it's very important and some things are coming up you need to know about. But right now, as far as the startup method with these 7 practices, first practice is recover. You know, I played football in high school. We'd hit the blocking sled, and you'd end up going down and then get back up and hit it again. And you'd hit. And the coach expected 3 hits per play. And so in the blocking sled for practice, we'd hit the dummy, drop to the ground, and get back up, and he'd say, recover, hit, recover, hit, recover. And that's sort of what recovery is for the individual. And that's one of the practices. Now, there's various ways to recover. Some people just take a vacation. Some people, you know, you do all kinds of things. But one of the most powerful ways, if you really are back on your heels, is a 12-step recovery program for whatever seems to be the biggest problem, especially alcoholism or drug abuse or, you know, anything else. There's about 150 different 12-step programs, and that's a powerful technique. Meditation has a profound effect on people. And there are other things too, but that recovering, regrouping, getting back up on your feet. Most good things happen after something bad happens. That's just kind of the way it works. And, you know, wherever we're broken, if we glue that back together, that ends up being the strongest part. And so we try to recover, learn what we can, and then go to the next thing. So once we recover, and it can be pretty darn quick for some people. They may, you know, St. Ignatius of Loyola was asked if if he ever was told by the Pope that the Jesuit order had to be shut down immediately, what would he do? And St. Ignatius supposedly said, well, I'd have to sit down for 15 minutes or so and collect myself, and then I would begin the next thing. And I believe he could have done that. I think he was in fit spiritual condition, and people that are can pause when agitated or discontented, regroup, and then do that next right thing almost immediately. But some people aren't in that good, spiritual, physical condition. So, yeah, I mean, you may have physical problems. Maybe it's not a bad idea to go to a doctor and get that checked. But recover is the first practice of the small business chamber method. And it's not just startup method, because this is a method that we use, is we're always starting. More about that in a minute, because that is one of the practices, startup. But recover. Imagine everything, look around you, everything, the smiley face. You know how the smiley face came into being? We had a terrible recession back, I don't know, it was in the 70s sometimes. I was in Wichita, Kansas, and all of a sudden somebody came up with the idea of these smiley faces. And I don't know if it had a big effect, but I think it had some effect. Cheer up, it's not so bad. And we need maybe this smiley face to be something we look at more. That can be recovery for some people. You just smile at them. That's the only smile they get all day. That can help them recover, get back on their feet. But when we are back on our feet, we're in a somewhat fit condition, then our imagination kicks in. And it's really an automatic function. Now, there are techniques that can be used. We use one of them at our Idea Cafe Startup Workshop. Come this afternoon and see it. I took it from Lynn and Charlie with their Just Start book, and they had an online class I took around the book that was very good. And they had what they called a fresh thought hunt. And it's very similar to brainstorming, but it's much more powerful. And I'll show you how to do that this afternoon if you come to the Idea Cafe Startup Workshop, or any Friday afternoon. But that's about half the meeting. But his imagination, everything starts as somebody's idea. My dad used to have the thought that everybody had to have a Montgomery Ward catalog in their home, because kids look through it and they learn how to imagine what life would be like if they had this, that, or the other thing. Now, you can also make the argument that just encourages greed and materialism. But, we can go too far with that. If we're just such unselfish people, we just sit there and meditate all day long. And maybe there's some people that are called to that. I'm not critical if they are. But, let's think about providing for the well-being for as many people as we can. I want to have sympathy with the poor, to help them, give them some immediate help. But let's not just give them fish. Let's try to teach them how to fish. And the imagination is very much part of that. And good businesses generally come out of someone's life experience. You have an idea as you're doing something in work or in whatever it is you do for fun. And you think, gee, I think that would be good. And I bet a lot of other people would like it too. Now, sometimes it comes out of formal research. FedEx, sometimes a story is told that way, that FedEx, did all this paper for college and then put it into practice, made a lot of money. But there's a lot more to the story than that. It is true he wrote the paper, but he only got a C. And, I don't think he could have raised money at that point. And he also had a couple of advantages. When he was 21 years old, Fred Smith got two things: a letter from his father, who had passed away when he was 8 or 9. And the letter to him asked him not to become part of the idle rich, and included a check for $1 million. And he was in the Marine Corps after that. And then he was a fixed base air operator. And then, yes, the original thought was in college, but he took it further once he had that experience and started FedEx. And they were very much, a let's get it done kind of company. And imagination, he had to think of that idea. Now, it wasn't out of his own personal experience, but that is the rare exception. most things come out of, for instance, the yellow Post-it notes. You know, these little things. The guy worked for 3M. They had a material, they didn't know what to do with it, but he sang in the church choir, and the marker in the book kept falling out. So he experimented with this substance that had just kind of come out of the research lab. They didn't know how to apply it. You know, it was tacky, but you could pull it off. It wasn't going to stick down tight for good and for all. And they didn't know, well, what's the application here? And so that need in the church hymnal led to the first 3M Post-it note. And 3M encouraged people with ideas to take it further, see if they could make it into a business. Internal entrepreneurship. And some large corporations encourage that. And so entrepreneurship, the startup techniques that we talk about are not necessarily just the person that's going to have a business of their own. These things also apply to campaigns, projects. You know, the Post-it note would have been a project. These things also apply. But what's different is the role of the entrepreneur tends to be much more focused when it is their own money. You know, bootstrapping is very much a part of the startup process. It seems like, you know, it's one of those paradoxical things where money can actually interfere in the very, very beginning because it buffers us from the marketplace. And so we have some .com, we got a lot of money behind us, and we blow through that money pretty quick and then look back once we're out of money and think, oh, why didn't we do that when we had the money to do it? Well, it's because you had the money. And so once we're, you know, our eyes are wide open, we're kind of pushed by need. I think the same thing's true in job hunting. If I need a job, I may have this inspiration of what to do, but then I've got to take it forward. But imagination, we have, now, it's not true that whatever we can conceive and believe we can achieve. That's a formula for insanity. And a lot of lives have been very much harmed by that. The extension of that was Rona Barrett's The Secret, which has harmed a lot of people. I've seen it personally. You know, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, that's not real yet, folks. And it may be a good idea or it may not. But that imagination, that first conception is critically important. Then think. Thinking is the next practice. So recover, imagine, think. And one way to think about your idea, if you really are serious, is go to a good CPA. A good CPA won't tell you if you've got a good idea or not, but they will help you see the financial implications and they'll help keep you legal. But a good CPA knows that a lot of times you can get that first customer without doing any legal work. If you go to a lawyer first, which is what's usually recommended, there's a good chance you're going to spend all your money on legal work because there is no bottom to that pit in today's environment, you know. And some people aren't going into business because they're so afraid of what can happen to them, and it's a legitimate fear. And you have to weigh things carefully. And you know, maybe you want to practice your entrepreneurial skills inside a corporation, and once you've honed them, then go outside. But again, the money can get in the way because if you're successful inside the corporation, you know, it may be that you get comfortable and don't ever leave and give your idea a chance. But every situation is different. You know, these startups are sort of like snowflakes. They're sort of all the same, but they're all different too. And you can't take very many general rules and apply them universally, but I think you can think in terms of developing these practices. A law practice, what does a lawyer do? He practices law. You go to school, you may get some schools in law school, and you know, you're taught to be a lawyer, but then you have to practice. Now, the problem with entrepreneurship degrees is it looks to me like you don't really learn to be an entrepreneur. Maybe I'm wrong. Prove me wrong. Show me one that started going to school, applying that, starting a successful business. I don't know of one single business that's done it that way, but we're putting all this money into that type of an approach. So, but maybe I'm wrong. Let me know. Learn is the next practice. So imagine, think, and then we learn. The best way to learn, best market research, we're going to learn more about, is this a good idea or not, by selling. Selling is pay-as-you-go market research. You know, you go out and engage. John Brackney, what do you need to start a business? You need a customer. So in Charlie and Lynn's book, Just Start, Harvard Business Review Press, they talk, you get up each morning. This is based on the research of Sarah Sarathvarthy. It's what I've been saying for over 20 years, but she's got some hard research to back it up, is the entrepreneur operates differently than the person inside the large corporation. You get an idea inside a large corporation, you've got a fiduciary responsibility to the stockholders. You have to go to this long, drawn-out process, unless there's a skunk work. You know, there was the Management by Wandering Around book, the Thriving on Chaos, that was so popular 20, 30 years ago. You'd never hear about it now because every one of their models of success, I think, has gone out of business. So, and you know, that's not really being critical of them, because any case history is a slice in time. And sometimes you don't get the right information from the founder. They kind of make it up. Dr. Bahidi said he'll have people into his class on entrepreneurship at Harvard, and they would start off saying, you know, the first thing you need to do is do a lot of research, because there may be competitors you're not aware of. There may be this, that, or the other thing. So you've really got to, and then you've got to do careful planning. You cannot spend too much time and effort planning. You need to come up with a real good case for your business. And then Dr. Bahidi said he would ask them, well, is that what you did? And almost to a man, or woman, they would have women in too, but they would all say, well, no, I didn't do it that way, but it would have been a lot better if I would have. Because we imagine if we do the market research and we do the planning, life is going to be easier, but it's not. It just eliminates life. Startups almost never start that way. Now, if there are exceptions you know about, you'll do me a giant favor as I'm writing this new book to let me know about them, because I want to take a careful look and see, number one, did they really do it that way? It may be that you know about someone that's told their story without someone like Dr. Bahidi. How many times have you gone and heard these, you know, things where they just turn people loose, TED Talks, all these other things, they just spout off whatever and they're not challenged. And, you know, ask them after the talk, go up to them and say, this is why we actually started doing the Idea Cafe. So I had a TV show on here in Denver. We had people on the air and they talk about how they started, and then you could go and meet them, what we back then called the Idea Association. And almost always they would say, well, now let me tell you what really happened. They had the story they told on the air, then they had the story they told when they were face-to-face with a very small group. And so the Idea Cafe has continued, but I haven't been on the air until now with the internet. And how can you resist when I can sit here in my kitchen at our world headquarters and tell you about these things? And it's clarifying my thinking to write the book. Well, we're running out of time. Let me go quickly through the last practices. Learning. So imagine, think, learn, start. Start is a practice. And you don't do it just once. Just start doesn't stop with your first good idea. You know, every morning we get up, we connect in whatever way we find useful. In a 12-step program, that's the 11th step. And, you know, we think through the day. And it's not exactly me figuring things out. It's really trying to be open to what seems to make the most sense now. And sometimes it's in a different direction. Now, I've been doing that each morning for a long time. And each morning it keeps saying, keep doing this. It's taken me a lot longer to get this going. Whatever this is, I still am not totally sure of that. And I'm breaking every rule anybody would set for startup. And so I'm for sure not saying, hey, do it like I've done it. But I've worked with a lot of successful entrepreneurs. I've studied it carefully. I've read most of the books. I've taken classes. I've accumulated an understanding that I'm hoping can be useful to you. And that startup is really, the essence of it is in Charlie Kiefer and Lynn Schlesinger's book, Just Start, Harvard Business Review Press. It's also in my little book, Daring Mighty Things. You can find it on Amazon. John Wren, Daring Mighty Things. But start is a practice. So what if you'd start thinking about start that way? Same way a lawyer thinks about practicing the law, you're practicing startup or start. Start up has just been added to the dictionary. I don't like it as well as I did before it was in the dictionary, because it's a start. What do we do when we start? Now, start down? Does anybody start down? Start up, but start, grow, and graduate business. MBAs were designed to help businesses grow. And I'm very much a believer that they can take something and scale it up. And it's a different animal than the start, the practice of start, the practice of grow. Now, there's a lot of talk about if maybe you're good at start, you're not so good at grow. Why is that? Well, I think maybe it's because you're not thinking of it as a practice. But there may be specialty. Now, I get a little bit leery of people that say they're a serial entrepreneur. What that means is they specialize in startup. They just start and start and start and start. And in a way, we all do that. We start and start and start because I maybe start a career, I get a job, I start a project, I start a campaign, I start a business. Then inside that business, I start. Every day we start. But to say I'm a serial entrepreneur, I'm specializing in startup, I'm not sure if you can do that without also having to practice and grow, because after that first sale is when the growth starts. So if I'm a farmer, I mean, you may bring people into harvest, but if I'm a farmer, I'm responsible for that farm from start to finish. And I really think that anyone involved in true entrepreneurship is going to be well served thinking of it that way. And sometimes your business starts, well, why are you going to shut that down and start a brand new business? Some people don't value what they have, and they sell the business, and then they see what a big mistake it was to sell. A lot of stories about people that couldn't sell, and then we're looking back, they're glad they couldn't because it was so much better staying with it. But start, grow, those are two practices, and then flourish. And really, all these practices are in all the practices. I mean, you don't wait until you've got everything going, you've grown, and then flourish. That starts really back in recovery. And flourish, Martin Seligman has a book called Flourish. I recommend it. It was used by the Army to install their Army fitness program as far as not just physically fit, but mentally fit. Seligman is the father of positive psychology, and he has PERMA, the 5 qualities of flourishing. P is positive affect, you're happy. If you're not happy with what you're doing, maybe you need to change something else, or maybe you need to change yourself. But P is positive affect. E is engagement, that Chechen Minga's flow, that we're doing something that's so engrossing that we get lost in it. How much of the time are you there? Or is it such tedious work that the day drags on and you can hardly wait for the day to be over? That's the opposite of flow, or engagement is what Seligman calls it. R is relationship. How is it between you and other people, in your work environment, in your family, with your neighbors? Jesus said we should love our neighbor as ourselves, that we should love our enemies. Why did he say those two things? Because so often they're the same two people, Chesterton tells us. And those relationships are a good indicator of, are we flourishing? Are we in that fit condition? M is meaning. Do we have a big picture view of life? And A is, are we accomplishing things? We want to do things. Are we actually able to get things done? We could be happy as a clam and just waste our life. And so maybe the happy face is not, maybe it's a good boost at a certain point in time. But if all we're worried about is being happy and feeling good, we're probably going to miss whatever it is we're being called to do. Each story, I've been told, each life is a story told by God. And it's not that we're puppets on the string, but that when we are in a fit spiritual condition, we don't have to worry about being alone. If we can see the path laid out ahead of us, it's probably not our path. What we can see is that next step. So get up each morning, gather yourself. Where are you in this process? What are you going to practice today? And then let's go do it. We end each show with a reminder, and to me as well as to you, that this life is very short. So let's go get started. Now, that getting started, maybe go to the Idea Cafe this afternoon. It's at Panera Bread, 16th and Market. Hope to see you there. No RSVP is required. Just walk-ins are welcome. I'll have this red hat on and look for it. So maybe I'll see you this afternoon or some Friday, or call me anytime. John Wren, 303-861-1447. Life is short. Let's get started. Thanks for watching. Like to hear from you.